Hi, I'm Brenda Hopkin, Lionhouse head baker, and today we're going to make Lionhouse pie dough, along with a lot of other tips that will make your pie making a lot easier. First, we're going to use 1.5 cups of bread flour and 1.5 cups of pastry flour. You may use 3 cups of all-purpose flour and have very close to the same results. Sometimes the pastry flour is hard to find. To the flour, we're adding a teaspoon of salt, a tablespoon of sugar, and a tablespoon of non-fat dry milk. Now you can use the instant or powdered, and this is the powdered. If you use instant, you'll want to mix that in with the water that you're putting in your ingredients later. And this is 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. The baking powder adds just a little oomph when your pie crust is baked and helps it so it's flakier. We're just going to stir this up a little bit so all the ingredients are mixed together. You can use a spoon if you don't like putting your hands in there, but I kind of like how it feels to get your hands all gooey. The next thing that we are putting in is a 1/4 of a cup of margarine and 1/4 cup of butter. You can tell that there is no fat or calories in this pie crust. 1/3 of a cup of shortening and 1/3 cup of lard. Now, lard is one of those things that have a really bad rep, but it makes your pie crust very flaky and flavorful, so don't be afraid to use it. Now, over the many years, we've been taught to do different things to cut your fats in. In home ec, we were showed to use 4 knives and get them down in there, and I never felt too well that way because I was not very coordinated when you get things in my hands, small things, so I don't use the knives. And then they have the little pastry blender, and you can use this. Either of those will work, but I really prefer using just my hands to break the fat in there. There's something soothing and calming about it. Just keep breaking it in and working it together. You can see that I'm just rubbing the flour into the fats. And I know fat sounds like a really horrible word, but without the fat in here, you won't have a very flaky, tasty pie crust. The Lionhouse pie dough is one of the easiest ones to use. It's like a sugar cookie dough when you get through making it. And it is better when it's completed to let it cool in the refrigerator for about ½ hour, and it will roll out easier and won't stick to the counter or the pie pans quite as much as if you try before then. This is just about ready. You can see that it has broken up really well. You don't want any great big huge lumps because then you'll have a streak of fat and your pie crust will not hold together. That's about, we have it there. Now we're going to add 1/2 cup of water. And on the recipe it says sometimes you'll need an extra tablespoon of water. You'll need that possibly if you use all-purpose flour more than if you use the blend of the two, bread flour and pastry flour. And just mix this together with a fork, or if you want to, you can use your hand, which is my preferred way. And sometimes I think if I don't do it that way, I don't know how to do anything. But you can see that you can really work this in a lot of the pie crust recipes that you have will say barely mix your flour into your fats, but you'll be able to work with this just like it is a cookie dough. We reuse our dough all day long, adding the scraps back into the new, and it works beautiful. We always have delicious tasting and flaky pie crust. Okay, we're just about there. And there we are. Here's your pie dough, ready to go. Now you can wrap this in plastic wrap and put it in your refrigerator for, like I said, about 15 minutes or so, and it'll make it much easier to roll out. A helpful hint, you can buy lard in the ethnic aisle or sometimes by the meat counter. This comes in a 1 or 2 pound container, and you can take it home and measure it for each recipe that you're going to make, and then put it in little baggies, put it in your freezer, and it'll keep for a year or two. with no problems. Don't be afraid to buy it. It's not very expensive, but it really does add a lot to the flavor of your pie crust. You can use butter, all shortening, all margarine, but you will not have the same flakiness nor the same flavor of the Lion House pie crust.